Yeah. So today I'm going to finish working on the details. And while I'm working, if you have any questions, you can type in the chat box. And by the way, I'm using Geometry HD in ZBrush for skin details. And we have around 98 million polygons. So let's switch to Geometry HD. Let's add a morph target. So in case we make any mistakes, we can just use the morph brush to erase those. And the brush I'm using here is a custom brush that I have made. It's basically just like the standard brush, but with alpha, I think it's alpha 43 or 44. And then there are some adjustments to the diagram of the alpha to make it a little bit sharper. And you should never use damage standard brush for painting displacement map inside ZBrush. Because when you export those, what damage standard does, it also pinches the surface inside. So when you export a displacement map, there will be issues when you want to render that displacement map. So that's why I'm using this custom brush, which only it just makes a deep line on the surface. It doesn't do any pinching. Let's increase the intensity. And let's find a better reference. Let me see if I can find a reference from the same angle. This seems to be a little bit low resolution. Let me see if I can find. Okay, this one's a little bit better. I mean, they're mostly low quality, so always make sure, again, that you have a morph target before you start adding any details. Because, for example, if I make a mistake here, I can just use the morph brush to erase it. If I use a smooth brush, it just kind of messes everything up. So instead of a smooth brush, I'm using the morph brush to roll back if I make any mistakes. Hello Salah, hello Adele, hello Betox. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask. So yesterday my voice just kept, I don't know what was the issue with my mic, or it was any software issue. I hope today we can have a smooth experience. We don't run into any issues. The references are, because the subject is from I don't know how many years ago. It's around 60s. Most of the photographs are low quality. So I'm just trying to do my best in reading those lines. Yeah, you have to pay attention for the wrinkles, because if you get them wrong, then if you spend hours just making the likeness perfect, but then in painting those wrinkles, you just pay enough attention. Kind of, it has to go all together, you know, the details and the proportions. Everything has to work together. For example, here, I feel like that the intensity is too high, so I can use the morph brush because I have a morph target. So I can just use the morph brush to roll back to make it a little bit smoother, less intense. I don't exactly remember if it was XYZ or a scanner store, but I use a blueprint. Usually for my own personal projects, I tend to paint all those pores with my own custom brushes. I have a custom brush, let me show you. Here's a single pore brush. For my personal works, I use this to add those skin pores one by one. And it takes too long to cover the whole face. So for commercial projects, for commissioned works, I usually use blueprints because I have a deadline. And there's nothing wrong with using blueprints if you don't have the patience to spend hours or days adding those pores. You can use Texture in XYZ or 3D Scanner Store. Yes, Adele, I'm using Geometry HD. If I zoom back, you can see this area inside this circle. It's called Geometry HD. I mean, for this many polygons, we have around 100 million polygons. If I don't use Geometry HD, then exporting the displacement map, it's going to take hours. So you have to use Geometry HD after a certain amount of polygons. It's also smoother if you don't use Geometry HD. And if you go beyond a certain level of polygons, it really depends on your PC specifications, but it's usually not a very smooth experience. The only downside, or one of the biggest downsides of using Geometry HD is that you don't have access to those layers. Also, somebody asked yesterday, and I explained that layers inside and outside Geometry HD are completely separate. I think that's probably one of the biggest downsides of Geometry HD. Okay, let's go to the left eye. Let me see if I can find a better reference from that angle. Yeah, this one is super sharp. So this line is basically here that I'm adding, and this when you're adding crow's feet, these are called crow's feet because it looks like a, imagine these are the fingers and this is the leg. That's why it's called crow's feet. When you're working on crow's feet, make sure that the subject doesn't have any expression on. Because for example, let me show you this expression, which the subject is smiling. You can see that the crow's feet are a lot more intense compared to, for example, here. Here you can see that the lines are a lot smoother. So make sure that the reference that you're using doesn't have an expression on. How long does one portrait take you? It really depends on the subject. But usually from 2 weeks to 3 weeks, sometimes even 2 months. But yeah, it really depends. The amount of references that you have access to. If it's a historical figure, historical figures usually take a lot longer because you have to do research. You can't just, there aren't many photos, if there is any. I mean, some of the historical figures that I worked on, they were just paintings. They were only death masks, life masks, paintings. So I had to do a lot of research. But for celebrities, it usually takes about 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, let's focus on the forehead. And while I'm working, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Let me find a better reference from front. This one is kind of overexposed. Let me see if I can find. Oh yeah, we already have this one. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You can always just come back to, if it's too smooth, you can come back and increase the intensity, or if it's too much. If you, I'm right now recording in layers. So for example, if my wrinkles are too intense, I can come back and decrease the intensity of that layer. So I'm just trying to get as closely as I can to the reference, but if not, then I can just come back and just rework those details. Also for the nasophabial folds, I'm not going to add too much intensity, just maybe these areas that you can see. Also pay attention to the lighting, because different lightings can make some of the lines appear sharper and more intense. So make sure that if you want to compare your model to reference photos, make sure that the model and the render of your model and the reference photos have a similar lighting setup. I can't show you any renders of this character because it's a commission. I don't have permission from my client to show you renders. But maybe in future, if I work on a personal work, I can just show you renders at the same time. There's still a lot of details that we can add around the eyes, especially. For example, here you can see that there are some directional wrinkles around here. I'm using different intensities and different brush sizes for different areas of the face. It really depends how deep you want those wrinkles to be. Can you then show us how to export displacement with HD geometry? It's just the same. There's no difference between exporting in geometry HD or just a simple subdivision. But I'm going to show you how to export displacement maps in just a few minutes. Geometry HD only changes the way you interact with that highest subdivision level. So for example, I have around 4 subdivision levels. And then on top of that, I have 3 other geometry HD. But it doesn't make any difference how you export that map. It makes it faster, it makes exporting those maps faster. So you don't have to wait hours for those displacement maps to be exported. I'm also going to look at some of your works that you have sent me after I'm done with this. You can send me your models that you're working on. Show me your progress if you want any feedback on your model or on your render. You can email them to me, you can send them to my direct or anyhow. Okay, let me show you quickly how I export my maps. So to just switch back from Geometry HD out of Geometry HD, basically, you just hover over your model and press A. So yeah, you can see outside that Geometry HD, we only have 1.5 million polygons. We don't have access to highest level of subdivision. Let me quickly save to make sure that I don't lose any progress. And then I'm going to show you how to export the map. Okay. So basically, to export the map, you go to Z plugin, and then multi-map exporter. Make sure displacement is highlighted. Then for the options, choose your resolution or map size, which for me is 8K. Flip V is also highlighted because Z-axis is flipped inside ZBrush. For the options, adaptive, subdivision level 1, or if you use a higher subdivision level, whatever you use inside your rendering software. For me, it's the first subdivision level. Subpix is for mid 0. For Arnold, if you use Arnold, I recommend you use 0 for the mid. 32 bits and EXR I usually use. EXR format. You can also export in PSD or TIF. But EXR, for 32-bit, EXR is usually the best option. The scale intensity, they're all 1. Then just click on create all maps. You can see when you have Geometry HD, it takes a lot less time to export the map. It's a lot faster compared to if you have used ZBrush for painting any skin details or high density polygon models. You know that when you export with higher than, for example, just maybe 4 or 5 million, when you export a displacement map, it takes forever, especially if you don't have a good PC. It just takes hours to render. But with Geometry HD, it's a lot faster. Okay, let me show you the displacement map. So here it shows red because it's a 32-bit map. We can't see all the details here. So let me zoom in. Yeah, these are all the skin pores, all the wrinkles here. Yeah, so this is basically displacement map. I'm not done with the displacement map. There's still a lot of those details that I need to work on. I just wanted to show you part of my workflow. So yeah. And by the way, for those of you who are new to the stream, I have this VOD channel that I upload my recorded streams. You can, if you have more important things to do right now, you can just watch it later. Let me see. Okay, we have this file that I wanted to work on, wanted to look at. Okay. Yeah. So here's a project from one of our members that he sent me for review. You can also send your project files for review if you want. Let me see if you have him here. Yeah, Luis is watching, right? Yeah. So I just wanted to point out some of the things that I think are wrong with this model. This one on the left of the character is a 3D scan. So I just wanted to show you the proportions, that some of the improvements that you can make. For example, the shape of the skull. Let me see if I can just import it inside ZBrush. Let me also import the scan. Yep. So comparing to the scan, you can see that the shape of the skull doesn't have that roundness of a human head. If you look at your references, you can see that the shape of the skull is a lot rounder compared to your model. Yesterday I was explaining that one of the mistakes that beginners make is they exaggerate on forms, on the details, on the proportions. Basically, human skull is a lot more maybe like a upside down egg if you look at it. So you have to make this the outline of the face a little bit rounder. The cheekbones, they shouldn't stick out this much. If you struggle with proportions, I think if you, just like what I'm doing here, if you compare it to a scan, you can just see some of the mistakes in terms of proportions that you have made. Also, the nasophabial folds are way too intense, considering the age of a character. These shouldn't be so deep. I'm just making everything less intense, basically. I wish I had a lower resolution. Let me see if I can go to geometry, reconstruct, subdivision. Yeah, let me reconstruct again. No, so this is as low as we can go. It's dynamic, but it's also subdivided. So the nose bridge is also exaggerated compared to the reference. Even disregarding the reference, it shouldn't be this exaggerated or this intense. From profile, you can see that, yeah, the bridge of the nose should be closer to the level of the eyes. The skull also, the back of the skull is always wider than the front and also higher. So the frontal shouldn't be the neck. I think the neck is close to what it should be. Maybe it's too long, or the shoulders can be a little bit higher, but it's mainly just the skull that I have issues with. We're just smoothing things out. I mean, the details that we have worked on, for example, the nose, the mouth, the ears, they look fine. There's nothing that I can point out, but just the proportions in terms of anatomy, in terms of likeness, that you should pay more attention to. The back of the skull is too far out, maybe. Also, from this angle, I think the neck should be a little bit thicker. So you can see that if you compare your model with a 3D reference, not a 2D reference, using 2D references is kind of advanced if you have to have experience to know how to read a reference. But using 3D references usually make it easier for you. to make sure that you're not exaggerating or over exaggerating your proportions or the details. I noticed that you don't make smooth. Is this so as to not remove skin relief? Yeah, I use morph brush. You're referring to the displacement map, right? Yeah, I use morph brush because I don't want to smooth out all those pores and little details underneath it. Yeah, so basically these are some of the things that you can do to refine or improve your model. Also, you can use base meshes, so you don't have to use Dynamesh, because Dynamesh doesn't give you the best topology. It makes it harder for you to change proportions when you're working with higher polygon densities. It's not easy to make major changes to your model. Yeah, I hope that you found it useful. So I'm going to send this to you tomorrow so you can compare it to your model. So guys, if you have any questions, if not, I'm just gonna... Yeah, thank you, Luis. You're welcome. If you don't have any questions, guys, I'm just gonna end this stream. So I was also working on... maybe I can show you some of my personal works to end the stream. This is something that I have been working on. And I've been working on this expression. There are two different expressions of this smile. There's a closed mouth smile and an open mouth smile. Let me show you a render. What brush do you use for wrinkles? It's a custom brush for... while this render, yeah, it's a custom brush. You can see my standard. That it's basically just a standard brush with an alpha, I think it's alpha 44, and then with some adjustments to the alpha diagram to make it sharper. It's nothing special, just makes deep wrinkles on the surface. I don't use dam standard because if you use dam standard, it pinches the surface inside. So when you export the map, it usually causes issues with the render engine. So yeah, this is dam standard, and this one is my custom brush. You can see that dam standard, if you look at the profile, the damage standard brush kind of pinches the surface inside. And that's basically the only difference. And this one is a personal. Let me also show you the other smile. It looks like he knows something about you, yeah. He knows your browser's history, right? Thank you. And here's the second expression, an open mouth expression. There's also this goofy expression. I think you have seen this one. Yeah, I'll probably just post this tomorrow or by the end of the week. And here is no expression. Let me show you no expression. This one's your favorite? Yeah, mine too. This one's just a blank. No expression. How much time to make hairs in XGen? It depends on the hairstyle. For this one, I think it took me a week, maybe 10 days. I also have different lighting setups. I usually save my lighting setups inside different groups so I can just quickly switch back and forth. When you work on likenesses, you have to make sure that your likeness holds up in different lighting scenarios. Don't just stick with one single lighting setup. You have to switch to different angles to make sure from all different angles the model looks the way it should. So yeah, that's it. The clothes, for this one, I think it took me also a full week to make the clothes. Let me show you the reference for the clothes. Here's the reference for the clothes. I also wanted to model his guitar, but I couldn't find enough free time to model the guitar. Thanks. So that's it. If you have any questions, let me know. If you're not, then have a great day or night. I'm just going to end this stream. Yeah, I'm using a 3090. I'm using Arnold GPU for the render. Here, Arnold GPU. I have two graphic cards, one 1080 Ti and one RTX 3090. I use the 3090 for rendering, and the 1080 Ti is for recording. So when I render and at the same time I'm live streaming, it doesn't make the streaming choppy. Okay, thank you guys. Have a great day and bye.